This is an excerpt from the book entitled Elohim the Archetype, Original Pattern of the Universe, written by Dr. Henry Clifford Kinley. This excerpt is called the XYY Controversy. I will begin. Our judicial courts are now being faced with a dilemma, which is causing a considerable amount of concern in scientific and legal circles. Recent scientific investigation of the sex chromosomes of prisoners charged with acts of violence and physical assault, including murder, revealed the presence of an extra Y chromosome in a larger number of such prisoners than in the regular prison inmates. The presence of such an extra Y chromosome was thought to possibly contribute to the criminal nature of these prisoners and has been used in the courts of law to try to get sentences moderated or even dismissed in some cases. Frankly speaking, the judges of these courts just don't know exactly how to handle such causes, for there are no precedents of previous cases to follow. This is the first time that the chromosomal makeup of a person has been used to try to absolve him of or free him or excuse him for some abnormal behavior, especially of a violent or murderous nature. To understand why this enigmatic situation should be occurring at this time requires a knowledge of our pattern and the purpose and plan of Yahweh. Man has 23 pairs of chromosomes, a total of 46, which are present in the cells of his body. Chromosomes are microscopic, minute, rod-shaped particles of protein material which are present in the nucleus of all cells and contain the genes which have to do with the determining of the hereditary characteristics of all animals or plants. The number of chromosomes in a cell are the same for each species or animal or plant. There is one pair of sex chromosomes in man or woman. The Y chromosome is the male determining factor, and the X chromosome is the female determining factor. A male has two dissimilar chromosomes comprising his pair, thusly XY, whereas a female has two similar chromosomes comprising her pair, thusly XX. In the process of reproduction, when the sperm cell of the male and the ovum of the female come together, each cell arranges its chromosomes in a linear fashion on either side of an imaginary middle line, so that half of the chromosomes are on one side and half are on the other side. When the sperm cell goes through this process, it is easy to see that since it has two dissimilar sex chromosomes, the X chromosome will be on one side and the Y chromosome will be on the other side of the midline of the cell. After this process is completed, then each sex cell, the sperm and the ovum, contribute half of its chromosomes to the reproductive process. If the male sperm cell contributes an X chromosome to the female ovum, the result will be XX, which is a female progeny. Please note that the female ovum has nothing but X's to contribute to the process. Whereas, if the male sperm cell contributes a Y chromosome, the resulting progeny is a male, since an XY situation would result. Hence, it is very apparent that the male sperm cell, having both an X and a Y chromosome, is the determiner of whether the resulting progeny is male or female. In the situation where there is an extra Y chromosome present in the sperm cell chromosomal makeup, some authorities are setting forth the idea that this might lead to over-aggressiveness on the part of the male to the point that some act of violence might be committed. There has been no definitive evidence that the presence of this extra sex chromosome leads to any change in the physical characteristics of the male of a recognizable or overt nature. More scientific work is now being carried on to determine whether the presence of the extra chromosome is attended by a definite change in the behavior of the normal male species, and there are some notable criminal trials that are awaiting an answer to this perplexing question. According to our pattern, we have already shown that Yahweh is pure spirit and is both masculine Yah and feminine Weh. The Tetragrammaton Yud-Heh-Wav-Heh is his true Hebrew name, consisting of the four consonants YHW or VH. And this name was considered too sacred to pronounce, so the vowels of the word Adonai, Lord, were substituted, and through a process of transliteration, we derive the name Yahweh. The cloud that Moses entered into when he had his vision atop Mount Sinai, Exodus 24th chapter, symbolized pure spirit, or Yahweh, who is both masculine and feminine. And the mixed whitish-gray sexual secretions of the male and female species resemble this cloud. As Yahweh, or pure spirit, is the source and substance of all things, so is the mixed sexual secretions the source and the substance of the prospective offspring. The Y chromosome would represent Yahweh, Elohim, and the X chromosome would represent his entire creation, which is drawn out of him as Eve was taken from or drawn out of Adam's body. The X, which is also a cross, would signify the damnation of the whole creation brought about by the Adamic transgression, Genesis 3:17-18. As Yahweh Elohim created all things by himself and determined the bounds of their habitation, Proverbs 8:22-31, John 1:1-3, Colossians 1:13-17, and Acts 17:26. And as Adam, who was made in his likeness and image, determined the names of all the beasts of the field, and the cattle, and the fowls of the air, Genesis 2:18-20. And as Yahshua Messiah determined our salvation for us, Acts 2:22-23. So does the Y chromosome act as the determiner of the species, whether one shall be masculine or feminine. This brings us down to the point of considering that the Y and the XYY cells stand for. It positively and definitely stands for Satan, or Lucifer, whom Yahweh created to be his own adversary. Isaiah 45:7, Ezekiel 28:11-19, Isaiah 14:11-20, Matthew 4:10, and Colossians 1:16, and gave him power over all flesh. It was this evil spirit that caused havoc and was in heaven and has been and is now causing all of the troubles in the earth. It was this evil spirit that entered the Garden of Eden and caused the man and woman to sin. And he is referred to in the scriptures as that man or a man. 2 Thessalonians 2:3, Revelations 13:18. If we, therefore, let our X and Y chromosomes stand for the parties that are present in the Garden of Eden, when the devil or Satan tempts the woman, we would have an X, Eve, Y, Adam, and Y, Lucifer, or XYY situation. Furthermore, since the Adamic transgression passed upon all mankind, Romans 5:12-14, whether they were present in person at that time, truthfully we were all present in the loins of Adam and Eve, then it is easy to see that spiritually speaking, we all have an extra Y chromosome, which represents that negative spirit that we were born with from our mother's womb. And this extra chromosome, spiritually speaking, is aggressive and is the cause of all violence in the earth plane, for it represents the satanic spirit working in us. Yahweh is not the author of confusion and violence, but rather Satan and his demons. So, even the man who does not physically possess an extra Y chromosome, he has one anyway if he is not regenerated and born again by the Holy Spirit. I, therefore, sympathize with the few individuals who will be made examples of in relation to this phenomenon of an extra chromosome, for they are standing trial for the rest of the world. For the real violence is not done through physical acts, but is done through spiritual degradation, such as is seen in our churches and pulpits, where the innocent are assaulted by a devil incarnated in the flesh. As the Apostle Paul wrote, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Ephesians 6:12. Once again, this excerpt is called the XYY Controversy.